Our next guest will oversee a hearing today on Capitol Hill focused on right-sizing the federal government. Joining us right now is House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer of Kentucky. And Chairman Comer, I know that you're going to be listening to a lot. What are you kind of going into these hearings thinking ahead of time, just in terms of what needs to happen at the government level?
Well, we can't continue to have $2 trillion deficits. That's unsustainable. And we have a president now that's serious about trying to get unnecessary spending under control. It's easy to increase spending in this building here in the Capitol, but when you talk about making cuts and people start losing their minds, I think we have a population and a society that is addicted to government spending. But unfortunately, we're going to have to get that under control, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that Doge and Elon Musk have been proposing. We're going to talk about a lot of the executive orders that President Trump has been signing, and I'm sure it'll be a very lively discussion because, to be quite honest with you, the Republicans on the committee are very serious about trying to get the backs of the taxpayers and get spending under control, and we have a lot of Democrats that just aren't very interested in making any type of budgetary cuts.
You know, I think that's really interesting. I think there is obviously bloat in the federal government. Something needs to be done, and we'd like to see that action taking place. I think the questions come down to where does the authority lie with that? Is it going to be Elon Musk and Doge that are responsible? Or are they just giving ideas to Congress, and you all are going to be responsible for coming up with some of those cuts? How does it work? I think those are where a lot of the questions lie right now.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're going to be having a lot of debate, probably a 6-hour committee hearing today talking about exactly that question. I think with respect to regulations, I think you're going to see the president do a lot of executive orders and reforming government agencies to try to bring some common sense back and cut some red tape and reduce unnecessary costs to the private sector with a lot of these government agencies, whether they be the Department of Energy or the Department of Labor, wherever we're talking about with respect from an agency standpoint that issues burdensome regulations, unnecessary regulations. I think the president can do that. With respect to a lot of what Elon Musk and Doge is talking about from a budgetary standpoint, then that's going to have to be Congress, and we're going to debate that today. The U.S. aid has been very controversial, but we've been very critical on my committee of that. We've asked for a lot of information with respect to where funds were going in the Biden administration. We never received anything back. We fear that there is a lot of that money that was maybe even pouring into some of the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that were paying for the transportation of illegals and housing of illegals in the sanctuary cities in the United States. We've got all kinds of reports that much of the foreign aid wasn't actually making it to the front lines in some of the countries where they were supposed to be going to assist. So we want to look at every dollar that's been spent in the federal government because it hasn't been reviewed. You know, you look at the Pentagon's failed 6 straight audits. This federal government's out of control, and we've got to get it under control. Elon Musk has taken a lot of criticism from the left and from the media, but I appreciate that he's interested and volunteering his time to try to get government spending under control, and hopefully our committee hearing today will be able to dissect that even more and try to find real savings for the American people.
Chairman Comer, one of the things that Elon Musk is targeting next is the IRS. He's calling on his X account to audit the IRS. You talk about the spending problem, but we also do want to, I think, collect the revenue that is owed from taxpayers. Right. And they've spent a lot of their money going after, for instance, wealthy taxpayers that still owe back taxes. What's your view on the IRS and whether funding should be cut there and what impact that could have on revenue?
Well, I think the IRS is needed. There will be some Republicans say to abolish the IRS. I don't know how you do that and collect taxes. But at the end of the day, I do think the IRS has a record of inconsistency. I think they have a record of targeting conservatives. We saw in my investigation of the Biden family where the 2 IRS whistleblowers came forward and you know, validated much of the claims that we were making in the committee and said they were told to stand down. But that at the same time, they were going after Donald Trump. So you had a two-tier system of thinking at the IRS. I think that the IRS needs to come in and explain themselves. I think they need to be transparent. They haven't been transparent. We know that the previous administration wanted to double the size of the IRS and double their budget. But I can tell you with certainty the IRS is one of the worst offenders in Washington from the stay-at-home policies of the Biden administration. There's still a significant percentage of IRS workers who aren't coming to work every day. They're working from home. And I don't know what you can do from home on your private server with respect to Social Security numbers and things like that. So we have a lot of questions for the IRS. And hopefully over the next few months, we're going to bring these government agencies in and they're going to be able to explain themselves. I'm sure that some of the programs that Musk and some Republicans have talked about cutting, they may make a solid case that they need to continue. But I think a lot of these programs are in jeopardy. And I think that the taxpayers will be better off if we can eliminate these programs.
Chairman, I guess the question comes down to, do you have unanimity in your party in terms of some of your thoughts on this? Because it's a pretty narrow majority that you hold. Yeah. The Democrats have been very vocal about their concerns about what have happened with some of these issues. And look, it's one thing if Elon Musk has a line item veto and can go through it. It's a very different thing if it goes through Congress. And I'm hearing from you that you think it is Congress's place to do these things. Can you get it passed?
It's Congress's place with respect to the purse, with respect to funding the government, funding these agencies. But I think a big part of what DOGE is going to do is on the regulatory front, and that can be done through executive orders with the president. DOGE itself doesn't have any authority. I know some in the left-wing media is trying to say he's an unelected president of the United States or unelected bureaucrat or whatever. He's just a volunteer that owns a big platform that was formerly known as Twitter that's throwing a lot of ideas out there. And there are a lot of people in Congress that are intrigued by his ideas, and I think that that's great. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to come together. When I say we, I'm talking about us in Congress. We in Congress, we're going to have to come together and determine which agencies are funded and which agencies are not funded. That's a role of Congress. But again, the DOGE, I think DOGE is going to make its biggest impact on the regulatory front, and they've already made a difference, and we've already seen significant savings from their ideas.
Mr. Chairman, hasn't DOGE already effectively shut down USAID? I mean, no matter what you feel about the questionability of some of what their funding was going toward, it feels as if they've kind of dismantled it.
USAID was created by an executive order. So in the thinking of President Trump, it can be undone by an executive order. There are still worthy projects that were funded by USAID, and Marco Rubio is going to take those over at the State Department. That's a big problem with the government now. There's repetitive services. When you talk about a lot of the DEI programs, it's already illegal to discriminate. Every government agency has a personnel department. And when you created these DEI offices, you created all these new bureaucracies. So we want to look at the federal government, what agencies are duplicative, what agencies are creating repetitive services, and we're going to try to eliminate those, but protect people. We want to protect workers from being discriminated against. We want to feed countries in third world countries that are suffering from famine. But we can do that without creating agency on top of agency on top of agency, because the more agencies you have in the federal government, the less transparency you have. And we're coming off an administration, the Biden administration, that I think will go down in history as the least transparent in history. So we're just trying to get our hands around some of this runaway spending, and hopefully we'll be able to make a difference.